I've lost 3 boyfriends because of my parents, and now my current boyfriend won't let me move in with him until he meets them. But I know if he does, they'll do everything they can to break us up just like they always have. I, 25F, was very shy during high school and didn't leave my house unless I had to, so as a result I didn't get a boyfriend until my freshman year of college. After 7 months of dating my first ever boyfriend, I brought him to my parents' house for dinner, just so they could meet him. I had to step away for roughly 10 minutes to help my older sister with her baby, and when I came back, my boyfriend, then 20M, and my dad, old, were having a full-blown fist fight. We managed to stop them and my boyfriend stormed off without saying anything, while my dad insisted my boyfriend was incredibly rude and disrespectful to him and my mother and that a guy like that was no good for me, because he'd just end up doing the same thing to me. I was shocked that my boyfriend could do such a thing because he had always been extremely sweet and I've never met or heard of anyone not liking him, but when I called him and told him what my dad had said about what happened, all he did was laugh and say I can believe whatever I want, before blocking me on everything. I was deeply disturbed by this, but my mom and sister insisted that he had just shown his true colors and said my dad saved me from an abuser. I reluctantly accepted this, but something about it felt really off. I met my second boyfriend several months later, during my sophomore year. Part of me still felt my parents were part of the problem with my last boyfriend, so I managed to get him to wait an entire year before introducing him to my parents. From the moment she laid eyes on him, every word my mom spoke to him was dripping with fake friendliness and subtle jabs implying she did not approve of him, which made him so uncomfortable, I could just tell. While we were eating dinner, she began asking me why and what made me decide to date my boyfriend, and asked about other guys and why they didn't work out. Some of the guys she asked about were completely made up. At this point it was clear what they were trying to do, and I silently vowed to talk to my boyfriend and tell him how my parents were trying to sabotage me. Unfortunately, it didn't get that far, as my dad chipped in and demanded to know how a boy who couldn't support himself financially was ever going to support his daughter. Mind you, we were both juniors in college at this point, and both of us were working part-time jobs. So this question was really insane. He responded by saying he'd already decided he wanted nothing to do with this family and was planning to break up with me when he got home, but he's just going to leave now. Within minutes, he was gone, and I was blocked. Again. My parents insisted they did nothing wrong and just wanted to test his confidence as any parents would, but I pointed out that this was the second boyfriend they chased away, and they didn't do anything to scare off my older sister's husband. I went low contact with them after that, but fast forwarding a little bit, I eventually allowed them to gaslight me into introducing them to my third boyfriend, whom I had met towards the end of my senior year, and basically the same thing happened. I had made it through college unable to find a long-term boyfriend, purely because of my parents. I did meet my current BF, 28M, 2 years ago, and I have managed to avoid introducing him to my family thus far. If he ever brought it up, I would always have a ready-made excuse prepared to explain why it wasn't possible, which has been pretty easy because he usually only asks about them when planning for major holidays. I have fallen madly in love with him and hope to start a family with him one day, but he recently told me that he can't even allow me to move in with him until he's had a chance to meet my family. I do not know what to do, as I know my parents will make it their mission to break us up if they meet him, but based on his insistence on meeting them, I realize I can't put this off any longer. Usually, relationships end because of something one person in the relationship says or does, and it's incredibly unfair that I always end up single because of things I cannot control. I want to tell my boyfriend about my parents and insist that meeting them is a bad idea, but I've listened in on some of his conversations with his friends, and the general consensus among them seems to be that a girl with a super dysfunctional family is a massive red flag, and an indicator of what their married life would be like. So I come here asking, how do I approach the problem that is my parents without risking losing the longest relationship I've ever had? If my parents end up being the cause of yet another breakup, I just don't know what I'll do. I just don't know. Edit. Wow, I made this post about an hour before going to bed, but woke up to quite a few comments here. Thank you so much to everyone who has helped me realize what I need to do. I've read through all of the comments and saw some recurring questions come up that I wanted to address. I'm not fully no contact with my parents primarily because they helped me a lot financially during college and when I first graduated and was looking for a job. When I went low contact with them, they constantly yelled at me for being ungrateful and said family does not turn on each other over minor disagreements involving boys. It sounds ridiculous when I type it here, but after months of this treatment, when I found myself faced with the decision to either tell them I forgive them so they'll pay for my dorm room, or refuse to forgive them and have to move back home, I obviously ended up caving like I know most people would. It was hardly an option. Why didn't I stand up for my past boyfriends when I saw them being verbally abused? I don't know. I've never been allowed to talk back to my parents, so the thought of calling them out while we have company over is not something I realized I could do, I guess. My arguments with them after they ran off boyfriend 2 and 3 were the only times I've ever come into full conflict with them in my entire life. I'll be going to my boyfriend's house today after work and will tell him everything. I'm terrified he will still want to meet them, just thinking about it has me shaking at my desk, but you all are right. He has a right to know and make his own decision. Edit number 2, well, I told him, and even showed him this post. To make a long story short, he still would like to meet them but thanked me for telling him as he always figured something was seriously wrong. My parents host dinners for our family every Sunday, and we will be attending this one. I suppose I'll make a new post with an update afterwards. Update, 5 days later. I meant to make this update a lot sooner, but since my last post a lot has happened. I truly appreciate all the comments I received calling me out for hiding my parents being insane from my boyfriend and encouraging me to be honest with him. My boyfriend is pretty involved now, so I guess I should give him a fake name. I will call him Ethan. I sat Ethan down and told him about my parents and how they ran off my previous boyfriends, before showing him my original post as many recommended. Fortunately, he did not seem to care that I hadn't told him, but he did agree with many commenters that my parents were more than just insane, they were outright abusive. Although he understood how I felt, he still said he would like to meet them, both to see it for himself, but also because he felt there was an underlying reason for their behavior. My parents have dinner for the family every Sunday, which I have been attending on the weeks that I'm not hanging out with Ethan that day, so we agreed that he would come to the next one. When Sunday came and we arrived at my parents' house, my anxiety was through the roof. Ethan had agreed to leave with me the moment things started to get out of hand, but with my parents that could have easily been as soon as we walked through the front door. My parents were surprisingly very nice, though. My dad actually seemed excited to see Ethan, and my mom fawned over her daughter bringing home such a handsome, confident-looking man, her exact word. I couldn't understand what was happening. Ethan even shot me a look a couple times, as if to silently ask if he was missing something, because my parents were actually lovely. I want to provide a play-by-play of the entire night, but the post would just be too long. The point is, my parents had done a complete 180 from their previous behavior, and it made me look and feel totally crazy for trying to warn Ethan about them ahead of time. During dinner, my mom said she was so happy to see her daughter had finally found someone who wasn't judgmental and was willing to give me a chance because of the person I am today, because the past doesn't matter. My heart dropped. What was she talking about? Ethan said he does not know about anything in my past that may be cause of concern, and my parents exchanged a concerned look, as if it was rehearsed. My dad asked him why he thinks my previous relationships failed, and he said that he was under the impression they got scared away after meeting my parents. My mother looked at me with disappointment on her face and said, "OP. Is that really what you told him?" I was at a loss for words, but Ethan was not. He said that it's pretty clear they are trying to plant seeds of doubt in him about our relationship, but he is not interested, as he knows me well enough to know my character and that even if there was something serious in my past, parents who loved and supported me or even just wanted grandchildren would keep it a secret to avoid ruining my relationship. My dad said he already has 2 grandchildren, and motioned towards my sister, who did not have her kids with her that evening. Ethan said my dad must have been very supportive of my sister for her to be able to start a family while he tries to run off any guy I bring home, and my dad's response was very casual, but extremely shocking. He said, "Of course, she's actually mine." Everyone was quiet for a few moments, until Ethan spoke up and said that now all of the abuse they've only put me through is starting to make sense. My mom said he's spouting nonsense, and that I have not been abused in any way. She then looked at me and admitted her marriage had a rocky start, but both her and my father have moved past that. I was too busy replaying my entire life in my head to say anything. The previous boyfriends, the lack of support for my social outings growing up, the volleyball games I had to have a friend drive me to because my parents were always too busy, the rage I was always at risk of facing if I ever spoke my mind even a little. All while my sister got the opposite. I started to cry, the hardest I ever have. Ethan immediately announced that we are leaving. My dad demanded we stay where we are so we can clear things up, but Ethan ignored him as he pulled me out of my chair and led me away. My mom screamed at me not to leave, and that this guy was trying to isolate me from my family. I yelled back that if anyone had been trying to isolate me, it was her, for my whole life. As we drove back to Ethan's place, my mom sent me several text messages cussing me out, saying one mistake doesn't change the fact that my dad loved, supported, and raised me, and that he would always be my real father. Ethan said he's not my dad, he's an abusive, controlling jerk who is taking his insecurities out on me. I ended up blocking both of my parents' numbers because they were saying some truly awful things to me, both about myself and Ethan. Ethan said he was expecting them to be crazy, but this was far worse than he could have anticipated. He said it'd be a good idea for me to go into therapy immediately, and that he will pay for anything my insurance doesn't cover. My parents showed up at my apartment twice yesterday to demand I come out and speak to them, but I've been staying at Ethan's all weekend and will likely be here all week. I'm not sure if this is the update y'all wanted. I had countless people enraged at me for being spineless and not standing up to my parents, and while I had planned on doing so, that's not what happened. I don't know what is going to happen with my parents, or where I go from here. But now that the holiday is over, I can spend some time looking for a good therapist.